Off-road autonomy's hot. Point 72 venture Stevie Cohen's funds in it. Why develop an off-road autonomy stack? Did you see something in the market, that same thing that Stevie Cohen saw, perhaps?
Well, I think the
We're
company
very different, I think, from an investor. Whereas we're coming from straight from a product and technical probably angle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective in the market, we work with the companies that make these off-road vehicles, and the short of it is they need good solutions. They need a solution that works, that's actually deployable, that they customize, and supports all of the pretty varied off-road ODDs that they have to work with.
Yeah, and the reality is, I mean, the customers themselves are trying to solve problems with autonomy, right? So we're just an enabler in that sense, and those problems can vary depending on the use cases. It can be labor shortages, they can be safety concerns with human drivers. So there's kind of a whole plethora of solutions that they're trying to bring to market. And we can take care of a little bit of that technology problem for them.
Fundamentally, I mean, off-road really boils down to something that has to do with operational efficiency, productivity, safety, and so the solution is related to all of those things.
The off-road space, a lot of individuals think about defense, but there's a lot of off-road applications, especially in West Texas, in the oil fields. And there's a common denominator speaking to the individuals: labor shortage. They can't get individuals to come work. And you see the same thing in the mining industry. Qasar, was this the industry coming to you and saying, hey, we need a solution here. Can you build it? Or is there some other reason of why you decided to build it?
No, I mean, that's the way we operate as a company. I think we do some research at Applied, but we mostly do applications and applying our technical know-how in the existing problems. And so you take mining as the example that you just said. Imagine you're in a mine in the middle of nowhere and getting folks to move there for 6 months at a time, even with significant compensation. I think we are in a generational shift where maybe in the 70s and 80s, people were willing to work offshore oil rigs and willing to do it for a premium dollar. I think all of these industries are struggling to find folks who are willing to do really difficult work at the compensation that that's available. Self-driving trucks is a very common kind of conversation. So I think the industry is looking for a solution, and we're meeting the industry with that solution.
You're developing a solution, Peter. Why should a company use your off-road autonomy stack versus spending the development dollars to build their own stack?
The short of it is it's super expensive to build. And so we as a company, right, we're able to supply this to the industry. And so our costs are subsidized then across having many customers. I think for an individual company to take on all this development by themselves, it's just cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I mean, our bread and butter is tooling, right? And the tooling business, where we started and we still continue to be very active in, is that the tools that are used to build autonomy systems in all these different verticals, all these industries, they are quite similar. And so you as a company can say, we're going to build all the tools ourselves, or we can build it for the industry and split the costs across dozens of providers. And then each individual provider gets a better product, cheaper than they would actually be able to make themselves. And this, by the way, model is the supplier model in automotive. Can an OEM build a braking system themselves? Absolutely. But why do the OEMs go to a handful of braking suppliers or windshield wiper suppliers or rubber suppliers? It's because those folks can bring the entire, demand of the global automotive industry. And that's both on research and development, but also in production. They can put all that demand in one factory and make the best brakes that you can make, where an individual OEM would have to set up their own operations. That kind of analogy applies also to tooling. And then as we saw, actually, this could also apply to like this off-road autonomy example, and therefore we got into the business.
It comes down to economics.
Yeah.
You're providing a stable solution that's scalable.
Maintained.
To a company that doesn't have the expertise. Maintained, there you go. Is it going to be licensed with a subscription? How is that model going to go into the market?
It's frankly different for every single company, but I think in the most simple way, yes, like that is the model. I think the industry, being all of these manufacturers of equipment, they fundamentally would just want a solution that works against the requirements that they are trying to fulfill. And I think that is fundamentally just a software problem, right? Obviously, it's not traditional software, and it's more advanced and more complex, but it is that. And so licensing and those typical business models start emerging pretty quickly.
When I think of off-road, we mentioned mining, we mentioned the applications in West Texas, but one of the hot trends is, as you were well aware, is agriculture. Are there limitations to the type of application the vehicle be used for, the type of vehicle? If you look at a Deere 8R tractor versus a Caterpillar versus a Ford F-150, they're different vehicle sizes, different architectures. Peter, is there anything that would stop you from working on a variety of vehicles, or is this stack only limited to a certain type of vehicle for now?
No, I think this is exactly what makes it fun, to be honest. There are there are a bunch of different types of vehicles that we can support. There's not hard limitations per se. The general philosophy we have is that if it's possible for a human to control the vehicle off-road to accomplish that task, we should also enable our off-road autonomy stack to be able to accomplish that same task.
The other point to answer a little bit of both of your last questions is the technology ecosystem is also evolving quite quickly. And so, CVPR just happened, and there's a lot of really interesting things happening. I think we had 20 people there from our organization. And so in some ways, we also play that role where regardless of what vertical you're in, we're taking this knowledge that comes from a very specialized part of the, AI industry, and we're exposing it to the vehicle manufacturing industry, and we play that bridge. And so part of the distributing costs model is also distributing research and development, right? You're distributing this otherwise you just be doing it for one use case or for one vehicle type in one company, and that becomes prohibitively expensive. But if you can, and what we're very clearly trying to do is build this for multiple vehicle types across ideally multiple industries, then that becomes a viable business for both the buyer and the seller. Because also, if we're not a viable business, that's not good for our partners. You as a company, all the companies you just mentioned, these are larger global organizations, hundreds of thousands of people that are working on it, millions of families that depend on the success of those companies to bring products to market. And if they're dependent on a company like ours, and we're not being thoughtful about the distribution of costs and the efficiency of the business, then I think it can be a very precarious situation. As Peter's saying, from the beginning, different vehicle types, different industries, I think is the goal because it makes the most sense economically. It's also really fun to do. And one example would be like our CVPR work.
Yeah, and maybe the last thing I would add is that because our solution is modular, right, there are certain industries where a subset of the modules are very applicable. There's a different industry where maybe a different subset of the modules are applicable. And so we're designing it to be more easily adaptable to the different types of tasks that off-road vehicles do.
I also don't want to imply this is easy.
No.
So
sweat and tears.
And so the reality of the situation is, and this is kind of getting into like abstract product development or software development philosophy, which is when you build a hyper-specific product, the advantage is speed to some degree. You can just pick that one silicon provider, that one sensor suite, and that's it, and you can go. When you decide to do it across multiple domains, now you have to make different choices. It's not always different choices or more abstracted away. Development models are more laborious or more difficult to maintain, but there is a correlation. And so we want to be thoughtful about those trade-offs as well. It's just like, generalized compute versus a very specific silicon that's made for a very specific application. There's pros and cons to both.
It's difficult. I read this economic paper, weird wonk that reads these papers, and there's a coming commodities war in food. The food shortage is going to be astronomical because of the labor. So you're going to see autonomy grow in agriculture. Where does the hardware come in? Is it certain? Do you give your customers a list of approved hardware, or where does the hardware come into this that's going to run the applied off-road stack? Without
getting into the details, just because the nature of it's, as you probably noticed, we didn't announce customer names and things like this as a part of the announcement. I won't get into very specifics, but broadly speaking, it's very difficult to have hardware that's applicable to all these different domains. Now, that's not always the case in 100% of use cases, but it is also the opposite is not true as well. So I think ultimately it'll be mixed in that way, where I think that as much as we can generalize, we will, and when we can't, or when it doesn't make sense, we won't. But that's very, very much in a deep collaboration with our partners and the vehicle manufacturers themselves who really understand those trade-offs. Mix gives options. Let's just call it that. You're giving your customers options, and when they have options, they can succeed, especially when the options are based in economics. One of your businesses that I've been following for a while is defense. You're doing a really good job in defense. Do you view this off-road autonomy stack
complementing your existing defense business?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of applications for off-road autonomy in defense. Certainly, we are one of the players in that field. And what's interesting is it's a use of a subset of the modules platform with certain parameters that are tuned for that particular use case. And you can sort of imagine, for example, there might be certain situations in defense where high speed is more important than pretty much anything else. There might be other aspects where there's a different set of constraints that are being factored into the planner or into the perception system as well. But it's our goal to support all of these things.
Yeah, and as you know, we've been in the defense ecosystem for a long time now. It's almost, at this point, we're far enough in the company. It's basically at the beginning of the company. It used to be, 1 year, but now the company's 7 years in. So really almost from the beginning. And so this is a very clear use case, without saying much more than that.
How would I say classified? How's that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll let you say that.
Fair enough. Do you view the off-road autonomy as a growth market for Applied going into the future?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we wouldn't be putting real resources into it. We have been for quite some time. So this is the public announcement, but certainly not the initiation of our work there. And so it absolutely is a growth market. I'm still, a very, very bullish on autonomy. We've had unfortunate situations where companies have had to cease operations. It's always sad, honestly, to see that, because there's a lot of people who are working really hard, and I'd love to see this giant autonomy ecosystem. And I mean, one of the reasons we started the company as a tools provider is to enable the industry to become large. I still believe, 99% of the value of autonomy has yet to be tapped. I mean, really, truly speaking, it is. The pithy kind of corporate saying always is, we're just at the beginning, but we truly are just the beginning. And a good heuristic of this is, you go out to the parking lot, you get parking garage or your local shopping center, you look around, how many of those cars are driving themselves? Very, very few. You go to a construction site, how much of that is it's not even, we don't need to be a full, like in the futuristic movies where people drive by a construction site and all these things are kind of happening themselves. We don't need that. It's just how much is being even assisting the humans that are there to make it safer, to give them eyes and ears around, because this is where accidents happen, is you don't know where somebody is or something rolls over, all the way to mining and all the other, defense use cases that we're talking about. So yeah, when you think about that, 99% of autonomy is probably still, obviously that's not peer reviewed research, but broadly speaking, I think we can all agree we're still early.
Yeah,
so
the vast majority of the market's ahead of us.
The vast majority of the market's ahead of us, absolutely. And then not only for off-road, I think it's autonomy and tooling and the spaces that we generally play in.
You're enabling an autonomy ecosystem. You're enabling it to become what I call the autonomy economy. Speaking with institutional investors that do a lot, the real dollars are starting to come, and autonomy is not just limited to, as you described, to roads or to mining. It's going into food packaging. It's going to all varieties of the economy. Applied's going to play a role there. Summing this up, what's next for Applied Intuition?
Well, broadly speaking, if it moves, it's going to be autonomous. And we want to help enable that reality. I think if the old Microsoft line used to be, we want to put a computer in everybody's home. And I think for the mission of our company is to enable the emergence of this safe and intelligent machine ecosystem. And so our kind of parallel to the computer in every home is an autonomous system with every human and every business. And who knows what the future holds for Applied, but I think if you put together the formula, which is we build technology that's quite complex and there's a demand from the market, hopefully the middle of that is a lot of growth.
If you're building autonomy, call Applied Intuition. They have the tools to help you succeed. Or if you're just in off-road autonomy, they have the tools to help you to succeed. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Applied Intuition. Qasar, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the Road to Autonomy Insights today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Grayson.